Steve Gillen's top La Cosa Nostra interviews with John ALITE, Mike FRANZESE, Anthony ARRILLOTA, and me, your host, Bobby Luisi. We have a great interview for you today here. Steve Gillen's going to be on today. And Steve was a former crime boss in East London. And he has an amazing story of redemption. You know, Steve was born in the UK. As a child, went to Belfast, being raised by his aunt. And at the age of 7 years old, he saw his first murder. Young boy dying on the street, bleeding, crying for his mother. And of course, this influenced him over the years. And Steve's been in and out of homes and different places during that time. He spent 17 years in prison, and he has an amazing story of redemption. So I really like you to stay tuned in. I think this is going to be a fascinating interview today. So I'll be back with Steve in 1 minute. Thank you. Thanks for coming back. I'm here with my friend Stephen Gillen, and like I said before, it's a fascinating story, and we're going to go right to it. Steve, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience, to the viewers?
Hi guys. I'm Stephen Gillen. I'm from the UK, and I've interviewed a lot of you guys, as you know, Bobby. You know, all the big names over there, all the mob guys. You know, myself, I had a big history in organized crime over here in the UK. You know, I served over 20 years as a high security prisoner. I was seen as one of the most dangerous prisoners in the UK then. I transformed my life. You know, there's a lot to it, but my life is currently also, I have a book out called The Monkey Puzzle Tree, which is being made into a major Hollywood film soon. But there's a lot more. We'll get into that, Bobby.
Yeah, that sounds good. You know, I read a lot about you, Stephen, and it's fascinating me about your move to Belfast when you were a child. Can you tell us about that and how that influenced your life?
I was born here, Bob. You know, I was born here in England in 1971. But then as a born baby, 6 months old, I was taken over to Belfast because that's where my family come from. I'm Irish Italian.
Okay.
But I have about a quarter Italian and the rest is Irish. So my family, they come from the north of Ireland in Belfast. And my grandmother was Italian, right? Mm-hmm. And so I went back there, but this was in the middle of the war in the early 70s, you know, and I stayed there till I was 9. But I see a lot of traumatic stuff over there.
Yeah, I seen that. And I seen that young boy that got murdered. You talked about that. Would you mind talking about that a little? On the streets of Belfast?
Belfast then with the IRA and, you know, the paramilitaries and the British Army, it was it was a war zone. It really was. There was the tanks, there was the bombs, mm-hmm. riots, you know, real guerrilla warfare would just appear like that, Bobby, from the flats. It could break out, you know, bombs were going off, you know, it was really at the prime then. I mean, I was a young kid, so I didn't know how the world worked. You know, my family was a very Catholic family, religious family then. So they used to keep me in and shelter me, really. My mother left me there, it has to be said, to go back to England to try and work and make a life for us. So I was left with my uncles and aunts there. And, you know, I was about 7 and I went out You know, I strayed a little bit. I got caught up in a riot. Shooting started. You know, then the tanks come, the armored cars, and all that. Roads are sealed off. You know, you had a coach over there that was just set on flames. The rioting started. You know, the rubber bullets and all this kind of things. But I can remember that the firing from the assault rifles and all that from the flats and the trading fire become so much that everyone on that road had to just run for their life. So I went behind a hedge, as you do as a child, you know, to try and get safety. I was terrified at that point. I had to be said, I was 7 years of age, you know, and I see a guy with a gun, you know, he was firing back, but he got shot in the chest, pushed him back onto the floor, you know, and he was only a young kid. Now, looking back, he kind of been more than 21, 22 himself. IRA guy, right?
Yeah.
Balaclava on and all this stuff. So couple of shots hit him, flung him down to the floor. But, you know, I had to watch that kid die, you know, as a seven-year-old kid. And he died calling for his mother, Bob. So this changed a lot in the innocence of me, and it shadowed the world for me. This was the first time, and I was there for 20 minutes, couldn't move, to watch this young kid die in front of me at 7 years of age.
See, that's it. Yeah, that would impact any child, I would believe. I mean, you know, we obviously grew up. I didn't grow up like that, Steve, but, you know, my environment impacted my life, you know, to what I ended up turning into. The same with you. So being around that violence and seeing this with the IRA in Belfast, it was just an arm for you. I mean, it just seeing all this violence, seeing all this, seeing the conflict between the English and the Irish, it was just an arm for you, wasn't it?
It was a funny thing because as human beings, you kind of, it's like in the neighborhoods over there, it's very close knit. And everyone kind of knows everyone. And, you know, everyone is with the program. There are divisions here. There are divisions and there are groups. And you stay with your own kind. So it was very much like that. But, you know, it was a very vicious, ugly war. You know, you had to be careful what you said, who you said it, when you said it, where you went. You had to constantly be thinking, because there was always this thing in the air that anything can happen at any time.
Yeah, I understand that. You know, it's like I said, it was a lot different here for us. But now 70s, 80s, 90s, I know that a lot of the Irish crews, they were still interested in the IRA. I know Whitey Bulger used to work with them. You know, I know a lot of guns and drugs and everything were going back and forth. What position is the IRA in now over there?
Unfortunately, it's kind of coming back. And you know what? I have to be honest. You see, the problem is one man's terrorist, Bobby, is another man's freedom fighter.
That's
it
right.
Just depends really where you're born into, what you're born into, and how you look at the world. But, you know, if you want to go to history and the real thing about it, Ireland is obviously Ireland. It's an island. It's kind of like Sicily, if you wanted to call it that. It's been conquered by many people. But with the English, you know, you're talking, this trouble goes back more than 1,000 years. So it's kind of a, you know, a really long-term problem. But now what is funny about what's happening in Ireland is where it was always a problem about the IRA, who wanted an independent Ireland. Now it's the Protestant ones who are causing the trouble because they can see that an independent Ireland is going to come. And now they're going to say, what's going to happen to us? So now it's shifted over to the other side. But it's the same trouble and the same war and the same violence, Bob.
Wow. Yeah. Now, all right, to get past that, when did you go back to England? You said you were about 8, 9 years old?
Yeah, my aunt, Madge, you know, bless her, she died of cancer. She was my surrogate mother. You know, she was my everything. You know, she really was as a young boy. I didn't have a mother, but I had her. I didn't have a father, I had her. Right. So, you know, she died of cancer, a really aggressive cancer. You know, and the men of the family over there, they said, right, you know, you need a woman's hand. So I was sent back to England, and I went back to London, Bob. I was 9 years old. I was that little child with a little case, not much else, on the boat. you know.
Now, at what point did you start getting involved on the street and started getting into organized crime?
I had a lot of trauma because when I come to London, of course, I spoke funny. I was different. You know, I got in a lot of fights, but, you know, I had a lot of friends as well. But I was kind of the guy, I was, you know, I was one of them street kids because, you know, I ended up getting in trouble really early because I was put into homes, Bob, and all that. I didn't really have that family base. So, you know, my family was the kids on the street and I was feral, you know, and I was very angry, you know, and a lot of anger, absolutely everything, especially the institutions, it seemed, you know, especially police or any kind of rules, you know, anything like that. I just, you know, I rebelled against that. I was really angry, but I turned into this kid that was madder than the rest, if that makes sense. And I would always do more than everyone else around me. I was game, I was crazy, I would do more. And looking back, this was kind of a defense mechanism more than anything else. But I kind of shaped myself with the anger I felt at the world into this person who was like that.
I see. When did you actually, you know, commit your first crime? Was it at the age of 9, 10, 11, 12?
I was like a one-man crime wave. I really was, you know, by the ages of 11, 12, 13, I was a one-man crime wave. You know, we'd have our first guns around that time. I think I was in my first gun about 14, and I took to that, and I was around other guys, you know, and that was introduced. So, you know, it started off petty stuff, silly stuff. But, you know, I was always around the older ones. And, you know, I know how this life is. You're groomed. So they see in me that they see themselves in me. So they said, yeah, this is someone we can use, no doubt. You know, and my family at that time was London, you know, the older ones in that family, they was quite key criminals. You know, they was armed robbers, they was organized crime guys, they was well known. So, you know, I had that upbringing, and, you know, I knew how to be, how I was meant to be, how I was meant to conduct myself, how I was meant to look at the world, what I'd done, what I didn't do. So I had that schooling from an early age.
Now I got a question for you. Now, coming up in London, you said it was East London, right? Mostly coming up in East London in this organized crime group. Was it formed like the Italian mafia? Would you see the similarities because you're part Italian? I'm sure that you were into the mafia at that point, or knew about the mafia at that point. Were you, was it structured more or less like the Italians?
The answer is yes and no. You had the kind of stylistic lifestyle mindset ways that was exactly the same, right? Really, you know, I can see that now. But it was more loosely connected groups. You know, I mean, there are many different mobs, as you know, Bob. There's the Russians, there's the Italians, there's the Chinese. Yeah, you know, there's different groups. And, you know, these are organized crime groups like you guys, you know, you're bound by an oath. You burn the saint and you have a structure and, you know, but the similarities are, it's the same thing because, you know, these groups are, you would have been to school with some of these guys, or you would have done work with some of these guys, or they knew people who you knew who would have done work with these guys. And so it's a very close-knit thing, and it gets closer and closer and closer. So when you're into the heavy crime, like the guns and the violence and the armed robbery of a higher level, of course, you would be more with them guys in more of a hierarchy. So there's still the hierarchy. You know, there's basically everything apart from the real structure of we burn the saints. So it's more loosely connected, but very, very similar.
Yeah, I figured it would be because being in federal prison, I was with the Texas Syndicate guys, the Mexican Mafia guys, Russian Mafia guys. And a lot of things were fastened after the Italians. Now, there's big Italian communities in London, isn't there? Is there any organized crime structured here over there with the Italians?
Look, do you know what there is? You know, I know you guys, you know, and the truth is that it may be like it was in the city or even when it fans out to different cities, but I certainly knew all the heavy groups in different parts of London. Right. I knew all who the leaders were, who the respected ones were, who the ones who weren't respected were. You know, I knew the hierarchy, you know, so we kept within them groups and we done a lot of work loosely with all these other groups, you know, and it was the same if you go to other cities, Birmingham, you know, it's kind of, you know, the leaders of the organized crime group stand there. You know, and another thing, as you know, Bob, is look, that when we'd be in and out in prison, we was category A prisoners. That was the highest. Yeah,
maximum. So super max. Yep.
Maximum security. I mean, I went in, you know, I got 17 years in the end. There was shots fired at police on that. It was a ready eye. It was very serious business. I had 3 trials at the Old Bailey. I'd be one armed robbery. I beat the second armed robbery. I got possession of a firearm on the second one, but on the third one, it was, you know, it was very serious. I got 17 years. I was actually released category A the same way that I come out. So, you know, I done it all maximum security. They didn't take down you know yourself what that says to you. This is rare, but you know, here it's like you're a target criminal. You're seen as a career criminal. That's a target criminal, you know, and you can call it, you know, organized crime figure or serious criminal or, you know, all of these names, but it amounts to the same thing, Bob, really.
No, it does. I know it does. I want the viewers to see the similarities between all these organized crime groups. And that's what I was trying to bring out with you over there, because it's the same over here, you know, and everybody respects, everybody works with each other. You know, I was fortunate enough, a lot of neighborhoods here are Irish and Italian, mostly, you know, and now we got a lot of Spanish neighborhoods now. And everybody has their own groups, you know, and the Irish in Boston were very strong for over 100 years here, and good people, you know, and I'm always fascinated with England, with London, even in its history. You know, I love it.
I mean, I've got to tell you, Bobby, I'll come in there just to fill in a bit. That, you know, for what I know, you know, and anyone would tell you, in my days there, you know, it was some of the strongest, really structured, organized crime groups then. They was Irish. There's a few different families that come from, and they was Irish. You know, I knew the Irish ones over in Ireland as well. You know, these are big guys. They're running absolutely everything, right? You know, and then you had your Chinese gangs as well. I knew them. Didn't have too much to do with the Russians, but you had, you had the Chinese guys as well. And there was the Italians, you know, they were smaller and they was more kind of low key in what they done. Right. They was, you know, into a lot of business and different stuff, but they was big people still, you know, they'd move a lot of stuff, but they was a lot cleverer. They would keep off the radar more.
Yeah, more they were a little different rackets. So you didn't clash too much. Yeah, I understand that. Now, all right, you did 17 years in maximum security prison. That's what we call it here. You know, Class A prison. Yeah, what was it like for you in there? When did you start really turning your life around? Because I read something about a spiritual encounter you might have had with your Aunt Marge. Would you speak about that?
Yeah, I mean, the truth is that even in my darkness, and I have to say I was a very violent prisoner. Yeah. A lot of stuff from the outside we was involved in translated into prison. So there was a kind of a gang stuff going on there. I mean, I see people killed in front of me, a few guys. You know, I had to do things or, you know, to defend myself, or it was going to be me. It was law of the jungle, really, you know, and I can remember, and of course I fight with the officers. I mean, they put me in units, which was prisons in prisons. I wasn't a normal prisoner. I was not the general population. I was supermax, and I was treated different. And the truth is, I responded really bad, really bad to prison. I didn't cope too well. So my thing was to fight against it. There was a lot cleverer ways to do it. It was just my way, Bob. I wouldn't advise it to no one, but it was my way, and I can remember through that process, I'd done 11 years and 9 months of that 17-year sentence in one stretch, right?
Yeah.
And I can remember I never thought I was going to get out of there. I thought they'd kill me or I'm going to kill someone. That's what I thought. I couldn't see what future looked like, but I can remember that after a few years of that, I felt like every emotion had been sucked out of me. I was a non-human person. I was buried. I was like the walking dead. And I had to be like this to survive that torture of what I was going through. Really, this was just what I was. So if I paint that picture, but for a long time coming towards the end of that, I was an intelligent guy, and I knew there was more, and I wanted out of that life. It was just at that point I was so trapped. But look, to go back to your question about the spiritual encounter, I'm just painting the environment here to the listeners so they can get more of an understanding of where I was at. Was about 5 years into the sentence, I'd been involved in another altercations and violence and all this stuff, and they took me down the block, and I was in the streets, all this stuff again. And I have to admit, I come to a point, Bob, I thought it was late at night, I was in the strip cell again. I had about 9 years in front of me, I had 4 years behind me. I didn't think I was going to get out.
Right.
It was dark, it was about 2 a.m, and I thought to myself, I had got myself into a place, I thought, you know what? What is the point of this? I actually think I can do this. And at that time, I had the head like a Roman. I thought, you know what? I'll fall on my sword. This is what I actually thought, how fucked that is, but it's the truth.
Yeah.
I thought, you know what? I'm not doing it. I won't keep going like this. I'll fall on my sword. So I was positioning myself into this terrible, torturous mindset. And then, a lot of suffering. I really coming to the end of it, and in a bad place. And then suddenly, it wasn't like a bright, like I'm in the cell, but it's like the darkness of the cell softened. And then I felt it's just this unbelievable power and feeling. It was a feeling, and it just come from the ceiling. And it was so profound, Bob. It come down slowly. This is what was so profound. And it covered me softly.
Oh, praise God.
And it was just an unbelievable feeling of love, of comfort, of, hey, it's going to be all right. It didn't speak. It was just the full feeling. And how profound it was that I was in such a state of despair. Really, it doesn't happen overnight. This happens over days and weeks where I'm getting to this place, right? And then this profound thing happens that comes onto me like an invisible cloak, but then it just stayed there, kind of embracing me, this thing, for about 30 seconds. But it was just enough to kind of cleanse that terrible torture I was feeling, Bob. And then it just lifted off me again as slowly, softly, gently as it had come on me. And it's like it washed, I still felt, but it was so profound. It had took that away from me, and I'd never forget it. So that was
I've had a lot of
thing for me.
Encounters like that myself, Stephen. And you said you're a devout Catholic, and the Lord sent down the Holy Spirit upon you to bring you that peace. And in that time, you felt there was something else. You felt something in your heart, and you felt something to live for, didn't you? I mean, God's amazing the way he comes and touches people. Now, it doesn't mean that you're in church every Sunday and you're on your knees 3 times a day. But if God has a plan for you, brother, you know, he's going to come and touch you. And praise God, you got touched.
Bob, you know what I've learned? I can say on my journey is look, and this is no trickery. This is not drugs talk or I've lost my mind talk. I'm very clear about this. It's so profound that it couldn't be anything else but otherworldly in that way. Let's just get that really, really clear. Now,
Yes.
look, you know, I've always been spiritual. You know, since I was a kid, we'd be marched up and down to, you know, to the priest and church and all this stuff, right? You know, but so I understood that life. You know, I had all of that around me since before I could remember. But apart from that, even in the worst of times now, looking back with hindsight, I can remember being in the deepest dungeon up in Scotland, crazy places. They used to send me so far, you know, to break me down so I wouldn't get visited. It's just crazy stuff they used to do, yeah? And sometimes in the deepest dungeon, you know, in the deepest despair, I'd get this little voice and just say to me, you have to do this. And I said to myself, why do I have to do this? Go through this living hell? Of course, it's a very thing. And you know, it's not your voice. You just think, you have to do this. It's like an instruction. But it's kind of telling you in a nice way that, look, there's a purpose for this. It's going to be okay. Things will change. But of course, it doesn't amplify that. And you know, I mean, I've come to learn that, look, if you're looking for higher power, this is higher power right there. It's that voice.
Yeah.
That voice in the dark that you know is not yours, that comes at that time. And look, you know, I mean, then, all right, I didn't even know if I had a future, Bob. I couldn't see a future.
Right.
My heart I was in the blackest of darkness. But now, you know, you go on, you know, I mean, I'm 50 now. You know, I'm a global entrepreneur.
Yeah, God bless.
I'm a humanitarian. You know, I'm a peace ambassador. You know, I went on to be nominated for an International Peace Prize.
Yep.
You know, they're making a film of my life. You know, I have wonderful people in my life, wonderful children. But I suppose the real richness is the chances that I was given and the strength I was given and the support I was given and the wisdoms that I was given as I was guided through this life to be a conduit, to be a tool, a vessel for me to learn, but for me to be outwards to try and heal and help other people. This is an unbelievable privilege and an unbelievable gift.
So what I learned in prison, you know, how active I was on the street, and what I learned in prison is we have to be broken before we could be made whole again, you know? And you went through that period of the brokenness, you know, and then you were made whole again. And for a purpose, because I see your purpose in the things that I read and the things that I see, you know? You're a good man. You had a good heart. You were just a product of your environment like I was, you know? And God comes after people that persevere, people that are persistent. Now, I don't mean to keep saying God because, listen, there's a lot of different religions out there, Hindu, Buddhist, Muslim, whatever your faith may be, you know, and that's the higher power that you have to reach for. And that's what cleanses us and makes us whole again. And your story is amazing and fascinating. What I want to go on to now is, you mentioned some things that you're doing today about this Peace Prize, being an entrepreneur, you know, and you have an awesome podcast. I love your podcast and your interviews. And you could pull these things out of people. And I really enjoy that, you know. But I want to talk about good things now. I want to go back now to your book, to your life story, to your autobiography. And what's in the works with that right now? And what stage are they in with it right now? I know the book is written. I'm talking about the movie. Because that's going to be exciting.
Look, it's super exciting. And you know what? It's not what people think. I mean, just before this, you know, we come on here to do this interview, I was talking to some other guys in Canada and some other guys in LA there. They were doing because we're also doing a TV series and we're doing other stuff. And this is very transformational stuff, the TV series. And you know what, for me, I'm a very grateful person, right? You know, and the thing that always keeps me safe and gives me a purpose and protects me even against myself, Bobby, because we have this stuff in us. You know, we don't. You know, there are stains that can come through us, like natures and memories and stuff, and you know, we have to make amends for a lot of stuff. But it's there. It's like a bit of Brighton rock. It goes through it. It's about managing that. You know, and it's about atoning for that. You know, it's about making amends for this stuff. It's about developing as a human being so we can learn more and do more, right? You know, and when you really start to get to a place where you embrace this and where you can see more, you really see, and you see behind a lot of stuff that we couldn't see behind before, then
you were blind to this.
Yeah, my experience is that when we embrace that and we start doing the right things and we start walking in the right way, then good people appear, you know, to aid us on that journey, because they're on their journey, and you know, this becomes bigger and better and brighter. You know, there's a lot of opportunities in this, right? So this is like the film and my book, but the beating heart of that is the truth. It's about the authenticity, and it's about coming from the right place, but seeing the right ending too. I can't stress how important this is. People think, oh, you're lucky. Oh, you know, you just know some people. Oh, you had a big load of money, or, you know, you just met the right guy at the right time. All the successful people I know, and I know many, this is not how this energy works. It's where it comes from and where it's going. The middle bit is the middle bit. Life is the middle bit. It's where we solve the problems. It's where we fall down and get up.
That's right.
You know, I hope that helps a bit.
Yeah, it's gonna help the viewers. I mean, this was great, you know, today talking to you about this, you know, because these are things that we learn through experience, you know, and that we want to make people understand. There is no such thing as luck. Everything has a plan. And I believe that. And we got to walk straight in that plan. And if we do that and stay on that path, then the great things are going to come. And I really believe that, Stephen. And you've done that and you have achieved it. And that's the most important thing, you know?
And absolutely. I mean, I can say about the film, look, the film's there. You know, you're talking big names with this. They're talking a $30 million budget and Hollywood. And I can go on about that and all that. Look, you know, it's a great privilege. It's very exciting. Of course it is. But when you get to that person where you're more of have more substance and and you see more as a human being, this is a big reason why these things can actually happen and more in your life. It's not how fancy this stuff is, or of course it's exciting. There's a lot of work behind it, but the real engine of this stuff, what I've learned from where I come from, which is a very dark place, is, you know, it's the giving, Bob. It's the us learning about ourselves in the right ways, but wanting to pass that on.
See, in my life, I believe, Stephen, that everything that I possess in my belief system is from God. It should be shared. It should be given. You know, I mean, it's just, I've learned so many things in life. I mean, even on the street, I was a giver. I helped a lot of people, but in a bad way, if you understand. I didn't help the right people. So if I could do that in Satan's world, I could do that in God's world. And I could do that for God. If we really have that belief system in our hearts, we can achieve anything. Anything is possible. Anything. And you're living proof of it right now. You know?
So absolutely. I mean, when I think what you just said there, Bob, you think back to, I mean, there was a lot of variables going on there, where he was born, and the programming had a big part in it. Unwitting or not, it doesn't really matter. It was what it was, and we was told to look at the world in a certain way.
That's
I mean,
right.
a lot of this was unhealthy. It didn't change who we was. But the difference is, if we're lucky enough to get the second chances, Bob, or we're lucky enough to because there's more of a purpose or more for us to do. So we get an open door to do more, see more, be more, is that we work ourselves out. And that's always not just about us, because there's a lot more going on here.
Oh, yeah.
Days we got the blinkers on, right?
Yeah, there is. I'll tell you, so now, what do you got coming up now, Stephen? With the podcast and your tours and everything you're doing?
There's so much, really. I mean, I'm meant to be going to Australia. They said, they want me to do a public speaking there, go up through there. We're looking at this COVID thing. They said, look, would you do it? That'd be great. We'd love it. I said, yeah, absolutely. There's Aboriginal, and then we go up all the way through there. So trying to make that happen. I'd love to do that. And, I do what my heart takes me. And you know what is really, I mean, I'm not silly. I have a responsibility now so much to others. But I've built this and I love that. For a man, for what we are, and to do that honestly and to be doing it the right way and building other people's lives and, having a real happiness yourself, is an unbelievable privilege. So I just keep it simple, and a lot of that is because of the wonderful people around me, Bob, it has to be said.
Yeah, well, simplicity is a gift. It really is. I mean, the simpler life is, the more peaceful you go through life. And people don't understand that, be satisfied with what you have. Keep walking that straight line. When you're knocked down, get back up. Things can happen for you in life. Before we go, Stephen, could you talk about your podcast a little? I know that most of the people that watch mine are definitely watching you, but for the few that aren't, could you just talk about it a little?
Absolutely. Look, we've got all kinds of guys on there. There's billionaires on there. There's some famous actors. But, with the big shift, I go on there, I do pieces of camera. I say a lot of stories and different stuff. And, we do that. We've got a few different playlists. But, you've got people on there like Nick Yaris, he done 20 years on death row for a murder he didn't commit. There's a lot of adversity on there. And of course, there's all the top current mob guys are on there. Michael Franzese, you got John ALITE on there. You got yourself, you got, this, I can go on and on and on, and I'm booked all the way through for the next month with a lot more names, John Panisi, Anthony Roggiano this week, right? He's coming on, and I love these guys, and these guys love me because no matter of we're across the pond or whatever, it's the similarities, and we're at times in our life where we just know and see so much more. So, I guess I've done so many interviews like you guys, and some are better than others, but there's nothing like having someone who you have a real synergies with, who you just know so much more, who can come with some angles, but he understands the full picture.
Yes.
It's a lot easier for guys to really go through their story with that when they know they got someone who understands what he's talking about, right? Exactly. And so, basically I'm getting, all the guys, and, a lot of these guys, I say, look, Stephen is the one to take me through my story. So I'm very happy to, we explore their journeys.
Yeah, it is. That's why I can relate so much with you. And I was excited when you wanted to come on my show, and listen, I have to thank you for coming on today. I think this was a great interview, and hopefully to see you soon, my brother. And God bless.
God bless. My pleasure. Look, keep going. And, I'm sending blessings to everyone over there in Ealing. Have a wonderful day.